Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here with a spoiler-free review for Murder in Highbury by Vanessa Kelly. I received this ARC in exchange for an honest review, and I will put content warnings for this book in the description, and this book is also already out. It is available to get, and this is, as you can probably guess, a Jane Austen-inspired murder mystery. Specifically, it's following Emma as our main character. I also want to mention that you can probably hear my fan on in the background. I have it up higher than usual because it's, like, I have to have it on for our weather right now, and as always this video does have captions on it that you can turn on. So getting into the book, as I said, Emma is our main character, and of course there is a murder very close to the beginning of the book. Her husband is actually the local magistrate, which means that he's sort of like in charge of investigating things like this. Like, he's not a police inspector or anything, but he's very involved in sort of legal things that come up. It's like his responsibility, and so that is how Emma gets pulled into the case and trying to figure out who is the murderer and what happened. I'm going to be very general with some of the setup details because I don't want to, like, I know some people think this is silly, but I don't want to assume that everybody has read Emma who wants to. And of course we end up seeing a lot of other very familiar characters from Emma, from the novel, and where they are now, and I really enjoyed this. I am really enjoying this trend of Jane Austen inspired murder mysteries, and I also said, like, the premise for this one I thought was like really interesting, because like if you had asked me like which of Jane Austen's heroines would be all up in someone's business even if that business were murder, I'd be like Emma. So I feel like the setup makes a lot of sense in that way. So starting with the characters, I really enjoyed the way that Vanessa Kelly wrote them, especially Emma and the love interest, like, who we of course know very well from the novel Emma. I really enjoyed their characterization. It felt very true to how they were in the story. I also still really liked their romance, which as you guys know, it's like relatively rare for me to still be invested in a romantic relationship in a story when it's sort of already like happened or concluded. So I still really loved seeing them interact. Their banter still felt very much like themselves, and I was just very impressed by how they still felt very true to themselves while also we're seeing them like at a little bit later part of their relationship, or they're a little bit older. Not very much. This happens like relatively soon after the events of Emma, but I just thought that was really well done. I also thought the side characters were really well drawn, including Mr. Woodhouse, who, like, I don't know, in the novel and in a lot of the adaptations, I find him kind of frustrating. Like, my heart goes out to him, of course, and I do feel sympathy for him, but as like a character in the story, like, his role I find can be kind of annoying or repetitive. But in this novel, I feel like he was really developed. Like, we saw like more to him, while again it did feel like this was plausible for who he was in the original novel, so I thought that was cool. And also, if you are someone who is familiar with the original novel, I think it's really fun and interesting to see some of the very minor characters who, even if they're minor in this novel as well, we just get to see more of them. Like Mrs. Goddard, who is in the original novel Emma. I don't think we even ever see her on page, but she's like the headmistress of this like school for girls that Harriet, one of the primary supporting characters, like attends, or like she lives there, she boards there, and so we really don't know much about her, and I just thought it was really cool seeing more of her and seeing the way that Harriet had a bond with her that we didn't of course have time to really delve into in the original novel. Characters like Mr. Perry, we hear a lot about in the novel, but in this mystery, like, even though again he's only in a few scenes, like, I guess it was just cool to see these kind of one-off characters given a little bit more of a presence here, even if they're still not major characters. I also really liked the writing overall. The humor really worked for me. I thought it was great, and I thought it was a really good blend of the author's own style and also things that felt very Jane Austen. And something else I appreciated about the writing is I feel like the way the story was told, I think it did a really good job of highlighting what it would actually like feel like or be like for this very small community to have a, you know, shocking murder happen. Because I think, you know, a lot of times when we read a mystery or we watch a mystery, it's like, I feel like sometimes writers can sort of like gloss over that part a little bit, like, understandably, because it can feel like it's wasting the audience's time, because of course we know that they're in a murder mystery, but the characters wouldn't. And so I feel like the like genuine like fear and grief that is present in this book, it just felt very true to me, and again, it felt very humanizing for these characters. Like, even though the murder victim is somebody who was not a very pleasant person and a lot of people didn't like them, the way that it was written about still felt very compassionate. Like, there is a ton of humor in this book, but I appreciated that it took the murder mystery aspect pretty seriously. The one thing that I didn't care for as much with the writing is I feel like there was a little too much of the like reminding us things that happened in Emma, or conversely sort of like catching us up on like, here's how the character development went so that we got to this point sort of thing. It wasn't like a big deal, but it just stuck out to me that there was more of that than I think we needed, and it kind of would sometimes it like slowed down the story, or it sort of like pulled me out of the story to have like these mentions or asides of like, and Emma was always somebody who would do this, but ever since last summer when this happened, she now knew better, kind of thing. Again, it didn't like ruin the experience for me, but it was just something I noticed. And then as far as the mystery itself, I enjoyed it. I found it interesting. There were parts that I had figured out or picked up on, but I still really liked the journey getting there, and it felt pretty well set up to me, actually. There was maybe a little bit at the end that I think could have been explained a little better or differently, but in general I thought the solution was done well. And I also feel like this is one of the books that, to me at least, the sort of amateur sleuth explanation, like basically how Emma ends up getting involved in this, it actually made sense mostly, because again, her husband is the magistrate and Emma is like a very nosy person, but also she's very intelligent and she's really good at interacting with people. And so I think that all of those things together and the situations that she ended up in, it's like, well, yeah, of course she's gonna like try to find things out when she basically gets like introduced to these clues accidentally. Like, naturally she's gonna use them. So I thought that was cool as well. And then the last thing I'll say is, like, as far as this being a like Jane Austen inspired story, like a lot of times I'll talk about these books and I'll be like, oh, I think you can, like, I think it stands really well on its own, like even if you're not familiar with the original. This is one where, in my personal opinion, it's not that I think you wouldn't follow it or wouldn't enjoy it if you don't know the story of Emma, but I just think that there is more of the interest of this book and like the characterization and like the relationships and all of that. I think they are going to mean a lot more if you do at least have some familiarity with the original. So I'm not saying that it's absolutely necessary, I'm just saying that in my personal opinion, and being very familiar with Jane Austen and having read quite a few of these like Jane Austen adjacent books or retellings or anything like that, I think, in my opinion, this one falls more on the side of your enjoyment, I think, is going to be really heightened if you are somewhat familiar with the original. So anyway, all that to say, I really enjoyed Murder in Highbury. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I believe this is the beginning of a series, so I am very excited to see how Emma gets involved in the next mystery. But yeah, let me know if you guys are interested in this one, if you're planning to pick it up. I would love to just continue to see Jane Austen themed mysteries. I just think that's really fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!